But there's more to the changing landscape. 5 years ago, no one knew what TiVo was. Today, it's a verb, as in I'm going to TiVo it. The product, which is like a VCR, but better, easier, and a whole lot smarter, changes the way people watch TV, not simply by recording programs far more easily than VCRs, but by allowing people to easily skip the commercials. And therein lies the problem. Okay, you may not think it's a problem, but TV people do. So much so that in an effort to calm them down and to make a few bucks, TiVo is about to become more advertising friendly, though perhaps not friendly enough. It's an impish symbol that's synonymous with a television revolution.
Oh, I love TiVo. TiVo's great. TiVo has changed my life. I mean, as my wife and I, we were totally inept as VCR users.
I'm not a technically savvy person. I had to marry him because I didn't know how to work the VCR.
Faster than you can say program for unattended recording, TiVo radicalized television viewing by giving subscribers the ability to pause and then resume live TV, the power to zip through commercials on fast forward, and the option of digitally recording hours of TV shows that can be watched later, making primetime anytime.
My boyfriend TiVo.
Ah, you've traded Steve-O for TiVo.
TiVo became a phenomenon in just 5 years, but it's still not profitable, and it faces fierce competition from other providers of digital video technology, or DVRs. So TiVo's recent announcement that it will allow pop-up-like ads in March seems a shift in TiVo's identity.
The idea that advertising and TiVo would climb in bed together, I think, makes a lot of people nervous, because a lot of people like TiVo because of the ease with which it allowed them to annihilate advertising.
But consumers' ability to bypass TV ads has huge implications for the future of free television, which depends on ad revenues to pay the bills.
The television industry is basically in the beginning stages of a nervous breakdown. I think advertisers who use television and have historically liked television for its emotive appeal are finding that it's a much more difficult enterprise in the face of such technologies like TiVo and DVR.
The effort has to be in the future to try to bring people in and get them to opt in, to want to see the ad.
The new TiVo ads will be pop-up like billboards that appear during commercial pods. The goal is to entice viewers to opt in to watching longer ads. But TiVo's CEO insists this is only a subtle shift, and one that has been overplayed by the media.
We have some real rules of the game that we want to play by, that we're sticking to religiously on behalf of our customers, and we're going to stick to them, you know. And yeah, there'll be new capabilities, people will see new forms of user interface. All that will evolve over time, but the rules will stay the same.
What is clear is that TiVo is taking all of us into TV's future.
Sometimes pioneers get a lot of arrows in their backs. And TiVo is certainly getting its fair share, both from the consumer side and from the advertiser side. But clearly, they are onto something. TiVo, as the pioneer player in DVR technology, is leading the way in how advertising looks and feels going forward.
So when we come back, what does this all mean? What if you stop watching the commercials? What does it mean for free TV? How will it impact the industry? How will advertisers reach you? Will you see more product placement? We'll take a break and we look at the future of our business. Getting back to the TiVo business, which in this case is about the future of TV, or at least free TV. Tom Mulzine is Senior Media Analyst at Sanford C. Bernstein and Company. And from Chicago joining us tonight, a man you heard a couple times a few moments ago, Tim Hanlon, the Senior Vice President of Starcom MediaVest Group. Whatever that means. Good to have you both with us. At the risk of offending all the viewers out there, there is, Tom, it seems to me, an implicit bargain that television makes with viewers, free TV makes with viewers, which is you watch the commercial. That's the deal. And once they break the bargain, the deal falls apart. Right? Tom?
Well,
Tim, right, I'm sorry. I hate when I blow the name.
I'm here for you, absolutely. I think that is the old way of looking at how television has worked, and clearly in the face of new technology that puts a lot more control in the hands of the consumer, I don't know if that bargain holds as much as it used to anymore, and I think we all have to deal with the consequences.
But if it doesn't hold, Tom, then how do we pay the bills around here?
it's a real problem. Shows like this, networks like this, probably aren't going to get zapped with commercials. But it's the primetime shows, it's the movies, it's the expensive CSIs and Law and Orders that people can record and blow off the commercials in later on.
How do advertisers look at this?
With concern on one hand and as a bargaining chip on the other. With concern because they have to find ways to reach the consumer, because advertising is part of the whole economic foundation of selling stuff. But on the other hand, as a bargaining chip, because if you can walk into a negotiation and say, hey, I don't know if people are zapping on commercials or not, give me a lower cost per thousand, it becomes something they can use.
Tim, David Poltrak, the longtime research guy at CBS, I saw a quote from him the other day where he said, in some ways, he thinks actually when people fast forward TiVo, they're paying more attention to commercials than they would if they didn't have TiVo, and they were just remote control surfing around the dial when the commercial pod started.
I think that's debatable, and you could argue that because you are so involved with fast forwarding to getting to the resumation, if you will, of the program, that you are paying more attention. You are more leaning forward, if you will. But I would argue that if you challenge anybody to look at a traditional commercial pod and you fast forward it at a decent clip, it'd be very challenging to remember more than one or two sort of ad blips, if that, in a commercial pod. And I think that's the issue that's at hand, is how do people retain those ad messages, if at all?
You're shaking your head.
Not a prayer. I watched 24 last year as part of my job. I was curious. This is research. I watched 24 all year on TiVo. I zapped through every commercial break. I could watch the show in 40 minutes and 10 seconds. Each show, it should have been called 16 instead of 24.
Yeah. Absolutely, and effectively, I think what we have to start from is ground zero, and that is, imagine all the commercial messages not being seen. What do we do from there?
Okay, back when I was a boy watching newscasts on TV, on NBC there was a big, or maybe not so big, but big enough that I remember it, Gulf Oil logo on the desk. Product placement, if you will. Is that where we're headed? Is there going to be Pepsi bottles on my desk and Timex watches and who knows what else?
I think key to how the people who watch can tolerate. One of the keys to producing is sort of to take the viewer by the hand and walk them through a complex storyline and hold on to them through that show, to the extent that things start to pop up and you say, oh my God, that's an auto ad coming full frame at me, or that's a Pepsi or a Coke. It starts to break that chain, and ultimately I think it has a detrimental impact on the audience retention overall.
Yeah, I think we have to go back to the days of when Pat Weaver was running or helping run NBC, when he basically introduced the idea that maybe separate advertisers, instead of fully sponsored shows, might add their own ad messages in between those shows. I think, frankly, it's coming full circle now, where we're kind of looking back at the days before Mr. Weaver and trying to see maybe we need to reintegrate ad messaging a bit more into the programming if need be.
Tim, that got a little jargony for me. Do that one again in non-ad lingo.
Effectively, advertising has been in 30-second and 60-second bursts, and in commercial pods. And the networks and advertisers have effectively added more and more commercials to those pods. So it's no wonder that consumers, when given the opportunity to avoid them, 7, 8 messages in a row, perhaps a lot of them not necessarily relevant, will want to fast forward through them. Thus, maybe programs, product placement, sponsorship, and the like, may be one way of many that advertising can somehow reintegrate into the television landscape.
Let me, in 30 seconds, which seems an appropriate amount of time, throw out one more idea, which is that for an advertiser, a TV ad is an incredibly powerful way to send a message. You make these little 30-second movies, and there's no other, a billboard isn't the same, a radio ad isn't the same, there's no other advertising form to me that's quite as powerful.
I don't think there's any question about it, which is why TV continues to gain advertising dollars, even though print, newspapers, magazines, radio have been having a tougher time lately, but television keeps gaining. So advertisers would seem to agree with that.
If those ads aren't seen, different question.
That's a fact. Thank you both, Tim and Tom, for joining us. We have to watch those bookings. All right, we'll take a break. Watch the ads. We got a lot of good stuff coming back. This is NewsNight.